I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are
Two Cranky Creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings. So what are we cranky about today, Kat?
Oh, I'm cranky about a lot of things. No, what I want to talk about today is I am cranky about the idea of trendy is a dirty word for artists and maybe seen as selling out. So that's I have a lot of thoughts there.
awesome.
That is awesome. We have a lot of thoughts on that too. And before I forget, let me introduce Cat Coquillette. She is joining us here today. And Cat, if you want to go ahead and share who you are, I will let you take it away.
Oh, thanks, Carrie. Yeah, my name is Cat Coquillette. My brand name is Cat Coke, and I am an artist in the art licensing and surface pattern design world. So for about the last 10 years, I've been creating illustrations and designs to be printed on commercial products. Everything from phone cases and laptop sleeves to wallpaper, home decor, fashion. You name a product, and chances are at some point in the last 10 years, one of my licensing partners has created that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then I also am a teacher. So about 7 years ago, I taught what I thought was going to be a one-off course for Skillshare. And then turns out I really enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed that connection with students. And so now I do both. So I teach courses, helping other artists learn how to paint with watercolor, draw digitally on their iPads. And then I also have a larger membership program called the Art of Collections, where I teach artists specifically how to succeed in the art licensing surface pattern design world through creating collections utilizing trends. So it's very powerful and important for commercial artists to keep these things in mind.
Awesome.
That is awesome. And I'm a follower of yours, Kat. So I subscribe to your email newsletter.
That's
really
right.
And
great.
one of the things I love about learning from you, you're also the first teacher on Skillshare I ever discovered. So you are kind of the person, you're like the person who got me into this business because I was so inspired by you and your art and how real you are. But you do talk about trends a lot, and I like that. But you're right. It is kind of like a bad word. A lot of people are like, ugh, I don't do trends. I'm above that, or whatever, people say, which that makes me cranky too. So let's talk about it.
Carrie, I'm a follower of yours as well. I also subscribe to your email newsletters, and you've got some great content to share. But on the trend front, just to kind of explain why I do hear pushback from other people about that being kind of a dirty word is some people view leveraging trends as selling out. Like, why follow someone else's trend when you could be trend setting your own voice, your own artistic voice? And I don't think it needs to be exclusive to one or the other. I think you can do a little bit of both. And I've seen firsthand, the last 10 years of me licensing my designs commercially is when I incorporate what's popular, what's selling, color palettes that are in, motifs that are in, styles, patterns, as long as I tie that in with my own authentic artistic voice and I have some unique perspective to share, that's how it feels authentic. That's how it supports my brand rather than just spreading myself too thin. I don't chase every single trend that's out there. I pick and choose the ones that are going to really just relate to my own style and feel cohesive with my own brand.
I think what you just said is important about kind of like figuring out the trends that feel authentic to you. But I think, and this is something that Carrie knows, this is a soapbox thing for me. And the thing that it like pisses me the fuck off more than anything else is this tension that exists in art licensing and in surface pattern design that we already have to fight for validity as artists, right? Because we're not creating art intending to go on a museum wall or a gallery wall. It's for your living room wall. You know what I'm saying? And like this tension that exists that somehow our art is not valid, or like we shouldn't, like I know I struggled for a long time with even calling myself an artist. It was always, I'm a designer. I'm an illustrator, these roundabout terms. And I think the whole concept of trends just kind of feeds into that, because at the bottom line of it all is our work is commercial.
Yeah. Toni, that tension you were describing, like that, I first experienced that in college. So I studied at the University of Kansas, and I double majored in illustration and graphic design. So I was a visual communications major. And even then, we shared our building with the fine art students as well. So the students that are studying painting, textiles, ceramics. And even then, that tension was there of like, I'm in the sellout group of like the commercial designers, because you can't say artist. And then you have the fine artists that have they have more integrity because they sell through gallery spaces. And you know what? It's just pitting artists against artists. It's just semantics at that point. And we're all valid, right? Like we have different approaches. Like I've always leaned to the commercial space. I like being able to combine my passion, painting and drawing, with my vocation. I feel so grateful that I get to do what I love for a living, and it supports my lifestyle. I travel 24/7. For about the last 9 years, I've just been bouncing around the world, sometimes in a country for a few weeks or a few months. But this whole lifestyle is completely supported by me leveraging my creativity and making money from it. And I think that's a really cool thing personally. But yeah, it's just semantics, right? It's whether you're a creative or an artist or a designer. I struggled with that too. I went to my first business conference 7 years ago. It's this entrepreneurship conference that happens in Bangkok once a year. And the first year I went, I didn't want to tell anybody I was an artist because I thought that I wouldn't be respected. So I told everyone I was in intellectual property licensing, which is what I do. Like it's my own intellectual property, and it's my art that I'm selling licensing. And I got over that eventually. But yeah, it was I think there is kind of a stigma against it, but I'm leaning more into it. And now I'm embracing, I am an artist, and I think that's great.
Absolutely. So I told Carrie this, but I haven't shared it widely. So I'm in an art show right now here in town. And I very deliberately chose strictly patterns. So I didn't do any of my illustrations or anything like that. I just printed them out large scale and framed them and hung them. And we had the opening reception recently. But I was very nervous about this because I'm like, I'm just doing patterns. And when I walked into the reception, there was a crowd around my installation, which was really cool. And then I was listening to what they all resonated with. But the thing that I thought about afterwards was, they all thought I had just painted the patterns, right? So they didn't realize that I had done them digitally, first and foremost. But I told my husband, I said, if I do this again, I'm going to have a product created with each pattern that I frame, and I'm going to have it on the wall next to it.
I love that.
So that they can make the connection that these, artists create these things that you adorn yourself with or your space with. An artist is behind that.
Yeah. And you know what? That's something that I wasn't really aware of until I got into surface pattern design. I'm like ashamed to say I never stopped to think like, who designed this throw pillow or this bedspread? It was just kind of noise. It's like, oh, well, duvet covers, they have a pattern. And I never really stopped to think who designed it until I got into the industry, and then I was designing duvet covers, and I'm like, the world needs to know we are designing these things. Yeah, especially for utilitarian products. I did a lunch bag collaboration a couple of years ago, just my artwork on lunch bags. It was sold through Sam's Club within the United States. And what they did is they actually printed, it was a collaboration with other artists, and we called it an artist series. And it was, I think, 5 of us in total. And what we did is for the actual like end cap displays in Sam's Club and the product displays, it was pictures of all of us, the illustrators behind the different lunch bags, to kind of draw attention to like, okay, yeah, it's a pretty lunch bag, but look at this illustrator or designer that actually created the artwork. And I love seeing stuff like that. I mean, one, it supports my brand, which is great, but it's really cool to kind of shine a light on, surface pattern design. It is real artists designing these things.
Right. And I think, going back to, we were talking about that tension earlier, I think part of, we do this podcast a lot for emerging arts. Like they're new, they're coming into the industry. And we started this a lot because we feel like there's not enough light shown on like the harsh realities of what it takes to be, a surface pattern designer. And I think that what so many, I know I did, but like, you struggle with the idea that you have to find your own artistic voice. Yes, you do. But ultimately, this is a commercial end product, right? And so these companies and these brands are predicting what's going to sell.
Yeah.
And so that's where these trends come into play, right? And I'll admit, in the early days, I was like, no, I can't deal with trends. I just can't. It's too overwhelming. I'm trying to learn all of this. I'm trying to figure out who I am as an artist. I just can't deal with it. And for my primary background is freelance anyway. So, and mostly illustration. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I need to start paying attention to trends because I have an artistic voice. I know who I am as an illustrator and an artist. But now, like, because I haven't pitched this year, I made a choice, and I'm thinking like next year is the year I'm going to get back to pitching. So if I'm going to put my stuff in front of a brand, it has to be on trend at some level, right? Like, they have to know that I can work with their business strategy. And I think that's like a duality that so many of us collectively struggle with, right? Because on the one hand, I want to express myself artistically. I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. But it's like graphic design. And I think all of us have graphic design in our background from what I heard. Your client is the product, right?
Right. Instead of your graphic design client, it's just customers are the client. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I gave this presentation yesterday for the GCA, the Greeting Card Association. So it's like Hallmark, Papyrus, Rifle, the big players. And I gave a presentation on trends because here we are. It's the end of 2024. December, January is when all the trend reports start coming out from different companies. Pinterest Predicts came out a few days ago. That's where they kind of aggregate what they think are going to be the most popular trends for the following year. Pantone just released their color of the year last week. And which, you know what, honestly, good for them for choosing such a polarizing color. They chose kind of a neutral brown. And I have never seen a color of the year get this much attention on social media any other year. So it's like,
because it's brown.
Because it's brown. And for me, it's like, it's not a color that I use that often in my portfolio, but neutrals are great accent colors. So it's pretty versatile. Like, I've already been going through, here's a tip with following trends. So Pantone announced their brown color. It was Mocha Mousse.
Mocha Mousse, yeah.
Mocha Mousse. And so what I've been doing is I've been going back through older artwork in my portfolio. Anything that kind of uses that color, I've just been just eyedropping and switching it out with Mocha Mousse, and then posting it on social media, sharing it on my email newsletter, updating my portfolio with it, because brands care about trends. They're wanting to use artwork that's utilizing the Pantone color of the year. I've been going back through my POD sites, Society 6, Spoonflower, Redbubble, and anything that like kind of resembles Mocha Mousse. I've been tagging Mocha Mousse in the keyword tags because this is the time of year when companies, consumers, everyone is searching for that tone because trends are powerful. Anyway, so I'm giving this presentation to the Greeting Card Association yesterday, kind of highlighting how I've used trends in my own artwork, how they've helped, build my career, really elevate my artwork. And I had this slide where it's like, trends aren't just some frivolous, superficial thing. They're really important. And then as I got to the slide, I was like, you know what, the whole audience here, you guys already know this thing. So I'm just going to, I don't need to back up why trends are important. You guys already understand because you're big players in the industry. Let's get just right into how I use trends with my own artistic voice and my own style. But yeah, it's something that I wasn't necessarily aware of at the beginning of my career. I didn't know how powerful that would be. But now that I've been in the game for a little bit, it's just more and more evident every day. A lot of my clients, they send me trend reports. And so it may be every quarter, sometimes semi-annually, they send me exactly what types of designs that they're wanting to license, motifs they're looking for, color palettes they're looking for, certain patterns. Even for something like as timeless as geometric patterns, like chevron or argyle, houndstooth, they're still kind of like flash in the pan trends within some of those. So you have, these timeless patterns, but then Taylor Swift wears plaid 3 times in as many weeks, and now plaid is rising as a trend. So it's like, you better bet I illustrated plaid last month when Taylor Swift started wearing plaid to the Chiefs games. I'm like, okay, this is an up and rising trend. I can't believe I don't already have a plaid in my portfolio, but I'm going to add it now, using some trending color palettes that also, support my own artistic voice. It's not too much of a stretch for me to create plaid because I have so many other geometric patterns in my own portfolio. It doesn't feel like a sellout just to hop on plaid because it's a rising trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have to say too that I don't mind the idea of quote unquote selling out sometimes either. Like, so I came at this as a graphic designer. Actually originally as a web designer, but there's this like concept that like as artists, we're like not allowed to make money. And I am not ashamed to say I want to make money. I mean, I'm not like, oh, the bottom line is my number one priority, but I want to be able to pay my bills. There's no nobility in like starving and, being this, oh, well, I have this painting that I refuse to sell because you're not going to be able to support yourself that way. And I feel like there's a good happy medium between, me selling. I feel more like I sell my soul when, and I have in the past done like logos for banks. Like that's boring. And I don't enjoy doing that. But the thing is like, I'm still drawing this myself. I'm still the one in the driver's seat. I can choose whether or not I want to adopt these trends, or I can say, hey, look, this like Delft trend is happening. How can I make this mine? So of course I made like cat butt porcelain cats out of it. Which was, nobody else probably thought of that as something to do. And it may not do very well, but at least, I kind of hopped on the trend. But I think it's dangerous for us as artists to feel like we need to apologize for wanting to pay our own bills with our art, because I think that is noble, because that means we believe in ourselves as artists and we're willing to, it's not a sacrifice, but adjust things, maybe adjust a color to be mocha mousse, or maybe instead of drawing, these cats in, with pencil and black and white, I'm going to do them in blue and white with like watercolor. So they look like they're painted porcelain. So it's like, I just think that artists are allowed the idea of trends underneath it all. The elephant in the room is we're not allowed to make money. We're supposed to be starving in order to be real artists, and that's just not true.
Yeah. Carrie, what I've done is I had really had like a deep dive moment with myself this year, and I was like, okay, what are my primary objectives? Like, what do I want to do with my career? What do I want to do in life? And one thing that it all kind of boils down to for me is just autonomy. I just want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I don't have a boss. I'm self-employed. I've had many bosses in my life, and that's part of the reason why I have such a drive to autonomy. And I think it's really special that I've been able to, just continue chasing this dream of complete independence, and I can support myself through my artwork. And I feel like I've kind of gamified it, where I'm excited to sit down and watercolor something and just think like, oh, I wonder what this is going to turn into. Is this going to turn into like wallpaper or a throw rug or a greeting card? And then it's kind of gamified in that way. It's like, okay, this is going to, how much money is this going to earn me? And it's not a bad thing. I think it's a great thing to be able to, and you're right, like so many artists, it's been like, oh, making money is seen as being a sellout. I think it's really empowering. And so, and I have personal art, and then I have business portfolio art, and I'll express myself and be as free as I want to be with my own personal art that I create. But when I'm creating artwork for my professional portfolio, I mean, honestly, it's not that different from my personal art, to be honest, but it's still, I'm thinking about it with the strategy in mind of like, okay, my primary goal here is for this painting I'm sitting down to create. I want it to get licensed and sold. I want it to appeal to my clients. I want it to be picked up on some new product lines. And that's a huge drive for me creating artwork. It doesn't always have to be what is my own my own thoughts and emotions and personal story I'm sharing. I weave that in, but it's almost secondary to what's going to what's going to put money on the table for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, the whole starving artist thing is bullshit to begin with. But like I spent 8 weeks in I don't know, it wasn't an incubator, but it was like this deep dive art program where it was, if you were creative, they were all called artists. So we had musicians, writers, and a whole bunch of visual artists. I was the only pattern designer. But our gallery artists, they want to get paid too. You know what I'm saying? And it's even harder in some ways when you consider that they need to get gallery representation and they need to, you know, do all of these things. So like a large part of the program that I was in was talking about like how to get grants so they could paint paintings, so they could be paid while they were doing this, you know, and they're all working other jobs and, you know, things like that. So it's just, I think the commercial face of what we do, in the fact that so many people like don't even know what it is. Because I did that program and then I did this fellowship program because we have the Mid-America Arts Alliance here in this region, right? And so I'm a facilitator for them. And so I was doing this program, and again, nobody knew what the fuck a surface pattern designer was. And so like we had to do these work shares at the very end. And I was like, my 5 minutes is going to be educating all y'all MFs about what I do, okay? Because I'm really fucking tired of this shit.
I know, you know, and so it's funny because people still don't know. I feel like most people don't know, and yet it's in front of them all the time.
Right?
They interact with patterns multiple times a day. They just don't realize it. Yeah.
I was in a local bar and was chatting with this woman. We struck up a conversation. She's like, "What do you do?" Because you know everybody asks, "Well, I'm a surface designer." "What's that?" And I'm like, "Well, the shirt you're wearing, somebody designed that flower that is now printed all over your shirt."
You guys, I was doing surface pattern design and art licensing before I knew what those terms meant. I would like try and explain it to people, and I was like, I found this new novel thing that I don't think anybody else knows exists yet. It's like, because I had no idea. I got into art licensing kind of organically. I was selling my designs through POD sites, print on demand, like Society6 and Redbubble. And so brands started reaching out to me because they found my work on those websites. And I had my email address listed. They started reaching out to me about licensing deals. And I was trying to like figure out how to explain to other people what I was doing. I was like, well, I signed this contract and I give them like permission to use my artwork for a little bit of time, and then I get paid something called royalties. And I'm like learning all of this stuff for the first time. And then once I really made this my primary, I was working a full-time job at the time. I quit that job in order to pursue self-employment. And that's when I really went full speed ahead with it. And then I was like, oh, okay, no, this isn't just some novel industry that I discovered. Surface pattern design has been around for a really, really long time. I just never noticed it because, again, like, who thinks, oh, I wonder who the artist that designed my bedspread is? I certainly wasn't thinking those things.
Yeah. And, it's also interesting to me how far back it goes, and me being me, I also blog because I was a writer before I was an artist. And so I have started this series called Repeating Her Story because, of course, everybody knows William Morris, but like very few people know like Mary Delaney, you know what I'm saying? And like these other people who like created our industry, right? And how, and I think one of the reasons, and it's something else that further just makes me cranky, is our industry grew out of what's considered women's work. Yeah. And so that's yet another reason why it's undervalued and, that sort of thing, because it came out of like the home arts and embroidery and that sort of thing. And so now here we are, all, hundreds of years later with this, evolved industry, which is still predominantly, I'm losing my vocabulary, it's mainly women who are doing this type of work, but, everybody knows William Morris.
even in college when I was studying art history, when we got to folk arts, it was kind of poo-pooed. It's like, oh, folk art, this basically means someone who's just self-taught at home and has no formal training. So, it's kind of kitschy and cute. And I look at that and I'm like, I mean, I think it's really cool that someone can take the initiative, self-train themselves at home and just really chase that creativity. And it's like, it's just all under this label of folk art because it's like, oh, they didn't have formal training. They didn't do apprenticeships. It's like, it's still just as valid. And I mean, think about how many artists out there now don't have formal training in school. And I think it's awesome. They're teaching themselves how to watercolor, how to draw and procreate. And it's almost a purer form of creativity, because not having studying under apprenticeship, you're not copying someone else's style. You're really discovering it on your own. And it's nice kind of seeing this shift in, you mentioned women's work, something like folk art, where it's like, oh, but it's not the formal training, but it's still just as valid. And it is mostly women.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah, that folk art term is kind of funky, because for me, when I think of folk art, I think about like this weird style of painting my mom used to do on milk jugs. I don't think of it as like self-training. I mean, half the world is YouTube certified at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
I keep thinking of outsider art too. Like I always loved like Howard Finster's art. I always thought was like super crazy and out there and like weird, but interesting and different. And I think that's what I liked about it. And like, I don't know if Basquiat would be, I mean, he's like in the fine art world. He's, I guess, pop artist, but I mean, he was kind of considered like out there too. And he's probably my favorite artist of all time. But yeah, I mean, especially, when you're in school, in art school, they're going to be like, oh, well, those people weren't trained formally, because of course they have like a motivational like incentive to say that, because otherwise you'd be like, well, why am I in this class? I'm just going to get up and walk out and start painting on wood now on like, on the ground or whatever. So,
and online education wasn't nearly as popular when I was in school as it is today. It's so accessible. I mean, you have platforms like Skillshare where I have classes, and I was a consumer of Skillshare before I was ever a teacher. That's how I learned. I mean, I went way back to like lynda.com, if you guys remember those.
I remember. I took classes on Lynda.
Oh, they're so dry, the driest tutorials. And I'm like trying to learn After Effects as a 19-year-old, listening to this like horrible lynda.com tutorial. And I'm just like, oh, this is awful. And now it's fun. It's like the Skillshare classes, they're more engaging, they're more lighthearted, and really informative. But yeah, I mean, I have learned so much online since I graduated than I did in school. I mean, there's so much information out there. So much of what I've learned how to do today, both the business side and the actual arts technical side, creating repeat patterns, for example. I learned that by watching YouTube tutorials, Skillshare classes. Repeat patterns took me several classes to figure out. They were complicated for me. Now we have pattern preview in Photoshop, and I'm like, I don't have to do any math. I can just do, and Photoshop does it for me.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Online education, I think, is you never really needed a degree anyway to do this. I mean, I'm glad I have my graphic design degree, mostly because it instilled a critical eye in me. So I am able to like be like, ask myself, how can I push this further? And I can just picture those like critiques that I used to be in. So that's good. But
I've never been asked for my diploma, even my first job after college. And you know what? It's because I never actually, I don't have the physical diploma. They wouldn't give it to me until I finished paying all my parking tickets on campus. And I'm just like, well, never going to do that. So technically I have a diploma behind a locked door until I pay some parking tickets. And now I'm like, I'm 37. I'm probably never going to get that diploma.
Yeah, you don't need it. You really don't need it. It's there.
It's there. It's there.
You should have gone to Wichita State. They have a day where you can bring in canned goods and get all your parking tickets expunged.
Wow.
That's amazing. What a good system.
Yeah, like right around, it's like, I forget when, it always happens near graduation. And then they do this big food drive. And if like you bring in a certain amount of canned goods, they'll like forgive your parking ticket.
That's a great system. Cool. I love it. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to mention on the trend front is one thing that I found in terms of, the pushback sometimes we get is you're not authentic, or you're selling out if you incorporate trends. One way that I've been able to counter that with my own portfolio, my audience, is for the trends that I do decide to incorporate, I try to tell personal stories about it and kind of relate it to my life, my experiences, my thoughts. Even something like, let me think of, like monstera leaves. Okay, so you think of tropical foliage, kind of an evergreen trend, but then you have these hot fad trends that kind of rise and fall, even within a traditional evergreen space. And monstera leaves are a big one. I mean, if you think of the most popular leaf in the last 5 years in the surface pattern design world, I'd be hard pressed to think of something that surpasses monsteras. Maybe fan palms, maybe ginkgo, but I think monstera is probably a pretty big one. And so even with that, of course I want to paint it. I paint a lot of tropical foliage, so it fits in with my own style, and so it's justified in that way. Plus, if I see a monstera leaf when I'm out and about, I'll snap a photo, share that photo as kind of the reference for what might inspire a future painting, and I look for opportunities to tie it in. And it's also, you know, for this trend, like monstera leaf, for an example, I have so much watercolor foliage in my portfolio. I've got so many leaves and ferns and tropical flowers. So painting a monstera leaf isn't too much of a stretch. It doesn't feel like, oh, she's really reaching with that one. It fits my artistic voice. It fits my style. And so the trends that I'm incorporating, that has to be the commonality. It has to be something that excites me to paint, that kind of fits in with my body of artwork, or it's an exploration from it, but it has to feel authentic. So I'm not going to hop on a trend that just totally doesn't resonate with me. I'm only going to pick and choose the ones that support my brand.
Yeah, and you brought up Pinterest Predicts earlier, and I just went through, we shared it to the graphics gang, and then I went through looking at what they're predicting. And the thing that I think is interesting, I do this with every trend report that comes out. So my approach really is I create what I like. I create what inspires me, I create what moves me, and I create collections. But then the trend reports come out, and then I start looking at what I've already got. So like I realized that the cherry core, I think they called it, red is one of my favorites. So like I can make that work. And I already have pieces in my portfolio that all I gotta do is really just tweak the shade a little bit. Mm-hmm. Stripes is one that's coming out. I have so many stripes, so just like I'm looking, I'm like, oh, you know what? I already have these trends, right? And I think Rococo is coming out, and I'm big, and I'm not quite so girly, but like I love maximalism and I love all that stuff. So it's like, so I already have pieces in my portfolio. So if you're this person that's like still kind of like trippy in your mind about what it means to create for a trend, you can still be on trend. Like you can still go and just revisit your portfolio and see what fits with the trends. So is it going to be necessarily as efficient as you're pitching? Because no, I mean, honestly, you do want to kind of pitch towards the trends while they're on trend. But, at the same time, like if that's not where you're at yet, revisit your portfolio to see what you have that does fit with those trends, or that just needs minor tweaks because you've already got the foundation there. I just think that's important. I
think that's huge. I mean, so much of being a commercial artist is repurposing older artwork that's already in your portfolio. Like, I mean, when I enter licensing deals, it's not like, I mean, they're choosing a lot of stuff that I'm creating right now, but it's a lot of the artwork that's getting licensed. I created like 5, 10, sometimes 15 years ago. And it's awesome. I mean, like why should something that I painted 5 years ago not continue to be viable and earn me an income? So it's one of the really unique and special things about this industry is we're as you continue creating art and building up your portfolio, you're opening yourself up for even more opportunities, because I mean, so much of the art licensing world is being prolific. It's a numbers game. It's how many designs do you have in your portfolio? Automatically that increases the odds. So, just kind of building upon those over time. I did the same thing, Toni, when Pinterest Predicts came out. I saw sea witchery, which I love that trend. It's like basically mermaid core was so popular this year, 2024. So what happens to the most popular trends? They don't just fizzle out, they kind of evolve. And so Pinterest Predicts is like, we're going to take mermaid core and make it dark. And I'm like, yes, I am here for it. So I'm like going through my portfolio and finding things that kind of fit this kind of like ethereal color palette, kind of like pearls, mermaids, fashion enters into it. It's kind of like dark coastal. It's like dark fashion coastal. And coastal is one of those evergreen trends where no matter what year it is, no matter what season almost, coastal is always relevant to a degree. But then you kind of add these little spins to it, like sea witchery. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some really dark mermaids this year. We'll see how those turn out.
Yeah. But I think you're elucidating something that I think is important. When you read the trend reports, what speaks to you? Like what in that speaks to you that you're willing, if you don't already have it, that you're willing to create, and like, so, I mean, for me, like maximalism coming back, it's like somebody just handed me a sundae with a cherry on top, because I am so
with
tired.
With a cherry core on top?
Cherry core on top.
Put a cherry on it.
But like, just because I'm over the muted, pastels, I've never been good with minimalism. It's just, it's not me. If you saw my house, you would understand that, like, that's not me, and so like now these things are finally speaking to me. Does that also mean that when trends go away from kind of like what resonates with me, that I might have a slower period? Yeah, it means I might have a slower period, but that's okay. Because that's when you just it's like investing. What do they say? When the market goes down, you don't get out, you buy and get. Like, so create some more. That's okay. It'll come back around.
Everything comes back around. And yeah, Toni, I'm the same way. It's like the minimalism that we've been seeing for like the last few years. I'm so excited to now see all these trend projections. It's like maximalism is coming back. I'm like, oh my gosh, finally. And I have designs in my portfolio that fit the minimalism aesthetic really well, especially in the wallpaper space where people aren't looking for overwhelming decor for their walls. I mean, maybe next year they will. Who knows how that's going to turn out? But but like in that space, I've done well with some of my simpler watercolors. But I mean, I know this is an audio podcast to some degree, but for your Patreon viewers, they'll get video. This is a mug I created with it's kittens and mushrooms and daisies and this kind of galactic kind of scene. And it's very much maximalism. And I created this design a few months ago, and I was just so excited to have it on a product that I ordered my own Society 6 mug so I can have it. But like this kind of design, yeah, Carrie, anything with cats, right?
Yep. And the colors are great. They're really bright.
This my assistant calls it my brat summer design, because I have this like electric green outline work, and that's a trend. Lime green coming out this summer. You better bet I used lime green in my portfolio. I mean, that's one of my favorite colors. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's a tip. You cannot keyword tag chartreuse to represent, because you think chartreuse, that means lime green. I actually got flagged for copyright infringement on my Redbubble site because I used chartreuse as a keyword tag for one of my lime green designs a few years ago. Turns out the chartreuse company has that name trademarked because the liquor existed before the color.
Wow. Yeah. Well, now that is completely random, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah, random fact.
Crazy.
Interesting. Yeah. And I also just want to throw out, like, being able to get your stuff on your own product is like super cool, because like I'm wearing like one of mine on like my shirt right now.
Oh, I love that.
It says my mouth is not a bakery. I don't sugarcoat shit. Because like, anyway, it's part of the show too. It's part of our first episode. But I loved it so much. I was like, I'm making a shirt.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
My phone case, my own design.
Yep. See,
now that I got back to the States about 5 days ago, and I had all these product samples waiting for me from my clients, and it's been so fun. It's like Christmas. I get to like unwrap all these things and be like, here's my notebooks, here's my planners, and then I get to I'm a generous God. I like dish it out to all my friends and family. Like, mug for you, a planner for you. It's, my niece.
Yeah, I order a lot of samples because I have an Etsy shop, and I do have some products that I ship myself, but I also have some that I drop ship. But I don't want to just use obviously stock photos, and I'm not going to go against Etsy's policies and use a mock-up that doesn't come from the print provider. So I just order samples. Like, I've got a mug behind me, but it's great because I get to see them in person, and then I end up with Christmas gifts for people.
Yeah.
So it's perfect.
I went to Michael's yesterday because one of my friends texted me. She was like, I saw your notebooks in Michael's. And now that I'm not in the States very often, so when I am, I have to go see all my stuff in store. So I like scurried over to Michael's and got some pictures of my products. And I'm like, okay, Target today. I got to go to Bed Bath & Beyond, TJ Maxx, like the whole lineup. And it's really cool. It's really cool to be able to go in there and not just see my own work, but then see my friends' stuff as well. Because this surface pattern designer licensing space, it's we're friendly and vocal with each other, and so I hop on Zoom calls every once in a while. I have a mastermind group where we're all in this space as well, and getting to like go into stores and see my friends' stuff and taking pictures and like thumbs upping it and sending it their way. It's really cool.
It's a really visceral feeling. So I do brand design, and I not rebranded as in their logo, but I did an entire hair care line for a local company, and then walked in and saw like just the shelves filled with, my design, and it's just like a really visceral feeling that I think, I'm sure gallery artists have that when they walk in and they see their stuff on the walls, but it's like I can walk into this local store and see my art for all intents and purposes,
Yeah, like carry your bows at Target. when I saw your Instagram picture and it was like you and Target and your bows, and I'm like, that is so cool. These opportunities, like I don't know, I don't think they were as prevalent 10, 15, 20 years ago as they are now. I mean, the internet is a huge part of that. But it's just, I mean, what a cool feeling. And yeah, I mean, how did you feel, Carrie, when you got to go have your bow artwork, your Target shopping cart?
No, that was really awesome. I have to say, I felt kind of silly because like the picture I took, well, I took a bunch of pictures, but it looks like I'm in love with the Target sign because I'm like looking up at it like oh, I love you, Target. I do love Target.
I love Target.
But yeah, no, it was super cool, and it is really nice to see it in person because, like, for instance, I worked in film for 16 years and I've seen my stuff on like a film screen or a television screen, but it's not the same as being able to go and touch it and see it on a shelf and be like, everyone can buy this. Cause not unless you see the movie or the TV show. And then I promise you, my art is the stuff in the background on these shows. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But to be able to be like, wow, you can just go buy this now. And, I've had friends like send me pictures. I had somebody who I didn't have them in my phone send me a picture of my stuff in a store and I didn't know who it was. And I was like, is this spam? Or like, oh, wait, that's my stuff. Wait, who are you? And it was just a friend who'd like switched phones or something. But
yeah,
it is really cool and satisfying. Yeah.
I had to bring my own. So like I did some Crayola coloring books earlier this year that were sold in Target. And I wanted to go to Target and take pictures of like me in the aisle with my Crayola coloring books. But my parents, my Cat Coke super fans, they bought all of them from the Target.
Oh my God.
And they went to like 3 Targets and they literally bought all the Crayola coloring. And I was like, I would have sent you guys product samples. And so I was like, so then I needed to go to Target and take pictures with it, but they were all sold out because my parents bought them all. So I had to take my parents' coloring books that they bought from Target, bring them back into Target and like put them back on the rack and be like, and then take the photos. And I'm like,
that's hilarious.
It's like bringing my own stuff back into Target. I like brought the receipt. I'm like, I don't want them to think I'm stealing
I know.
it.
I was going to say, did you have the receipt? Were they going to think you were stealing it?
Oh my God. Yeah. And then I had like an outfit change. I like had like one shirt and then I like took that off and I had the other shirt on underneath it. So I could get different products and different stuff. But yeah, it was me sneaking my designs back into Target just to get the photos.
That's hilarious. That is
I
hilarious.
do have to say one thing, and I wanted to touch on this before we get to our hot seat questions. So Kat, you said something earlier that I think is really important for everybody to hear. You were talking about how when you were doing, you had your stuff in a store and they had like a photo of you. They were like, here is the artist behind these products. Here is, who designed these mass-produced products. I think that is so amazing and also important for all of us to hear because AI is turning the world into a computer-generated mess. But that means that those of us who are creating actual art ourselves, drawing it and painting it ourselves, are becoming more and more valuable as, I guess, commodities to these companies, which is fine. I'm fine with that. And as creators, because they can show a real photo of a real person and say this real person drew this. So it was not faked by a computer. And I think that if that's not selling out, then I don't know what is.
Right.
I love that. And okay, so this is something like my students ask me, excuse me, a lot. How do I feel about AI art? Is it going to completely take my job? Is it going to take our industry away? And the way I see it is there's always been a market for cheap mass-produced artwork, and there's always been a market for something that has a finer touch to it. And when I work with brands that do emphasize the artist story, like Happy Planner is one that I partnered with this year, and on the planner itself that I created, they have a whole insert with a picture of me. It says there's a whole paragraph introducing me, talking about my brand, my voice, my social handles are on there. Like they did a great job supporting artists. And those are the brands I want to partner with. I want to partner with brands that prioritize this, that put a high level of value on it. There's always going to be the Sheins, the Temus of the world where they were never going to license from me anyway. Like I'm just not who they license from. They want cheaper mass-produced things. That's not who I work with. And so I think if anything, we're just going to see more of a distinction between those two. But I'm certainly prioritizing the brands that put artists forward. And I think that's going to be the future of the surface pattern design art licensing industry. Is we're going to see even more of that, because there will be a consumer demand for, I want something created by a real artist. That demand has always been there, and it will continue to be.
And I think the other thing to remember as an artist in this kind of day and time with AI is that the Copyright Office has made a determination you can't copyright AI generated art. And so these brands, they want ownership. I mean, that's why they're licensing, they're getting the right to use it, right? And so if you can't own a copyright, that just introduces all kinds of craziness to it anyway. So, but I do want us to come back and kind of say, so Kat, you're kind of like our trend expert here. What is kind of like the piece of advice you would give artists entering now that are struggling with this tension we've been talking about?
I would say my best piece of advice is being memorable and creating memorable artwork can do great things for you and can really propel your brand. And one of the best strategies I've personally found to be memorable is to share stories about your artwork. So maybe you're sharing some process footage of you creating a design. Maybe you're carving it out because you're creating stamps, or maybe you're watercoloring or doing a digital illustration. Show that behind the scenes. Show one thing I do is I show photos. I use reference photos to help me paint and draw. So I'll take pictures of something out in the wild, and then I'll create it as artwork later. And I show those reference photos. I talk about the inspiration of my artwork. I share funny anecdotes. Like I created a lemon pattern a few years ago, and it's like, okay, lemons, generic, timeless. I mean, what's so special about them? But then I paired it with this story of, I was in Italy. I was staying at this woman's house. The first night I got there, she served me a glass of limoncello. It was absolutely delicious. I was like, can you teach me how to make this? And she sent me to the neighbor's yard to like pick lemons without them seeing, and then like run back. And then it turns out limoncello is mostly just sugar and alcohol with just a touch of lemon. But so I got to have this whole workshop with her of making our own limoncello. And then I created these lemons afterwards. So when I showed the artwork, it wasn't just, here's some generic lemons. It's like, here's lemons, and here's a really funny story behind it, and here's some knowledge I learned. And that kind of thing is what makes artwork more memorable. It's what makes your designs feel more special. And that's also how you can make a name for yourself. And you're not just another artist out there who just, artwork just magically appears on their Instagram feed, but they're showing more about the process, their own inclinations as an artist, what inspires them. And I think that, especially now with this world of AI art, that you're getting a 2-for-1. You're becoming more memorable, and you're also setting yourself apart, and you're following, dare I say it, a trend of really real human artwork rising to the cream of the crop. So that would be my advice there.
Excellent. Excellent. So I think that's a good place to transition into our hot seat questions. So I've got 5 for you. They're super easy. So the first one is, what's your favorite color and why?
My favorite color is, I'm having my green era right now, and my eyes are green. Maybe that's why. No, I really thought Pantone color of the year this year was going to be like a dark teal, and I was severely disappointed. But yeah, green is my favorite color, and that's in my watercolor paint pans. Green is the one that I have to replace the most often. That's the watercolors I use the most.
That's awesome. Dogs or cats?
Oh, I love all animals, but it's cats. I live in Thailand for most of the year, and I've got these parking lot kittens that I've been caring for. They did not like getting neutered and spayed, but besides that, they love me. And I go down there multiple times a day. I take cat breaks throughout the day, which is one of the best things ever. So nice. Yeah, I think cats right now.
Cats. So what part of Thailand are you in?
Chiang Mai. So it's up north. It's a mountain town. It's beautiful. There's just beautiful hiking, waterfalls, and the parking lot cats. So what more could you need in life?
That's awesome. So I have a nephew that lives in Pattaya. So he spends a lot of time in Chiang Mai. So yeah.
Nice.
Cool. We have a restaurant here called Chiang Mai, but
awesome. You're there's what's that speaking of trends, what's that hippo? The pygmy hippo that
oh yeah, I can't remember its name.
Moodang, something like that.
Moodang.
Yeah. That hippo lives in a zoo in Pattaya.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I wonder if you've seen him.
I'll have to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your go-to drawing software?
It's Procreate right now. So it used to be by hand, and I still sketch and draw by hand, but I mean, you can't beat the 2-finger undo, double tap and then any mistake. I want to do it in real life, like Command Z.
I do it all the time.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When I try to go back to like sketching, I'm always like tapping the paper like it's
and I'm
gonna
like,
undo the mistake I just made.
It's funny. Yeah, no, it's Procreate. I've tried others. I've tried Affinity Designer, but one thing I really like about Procreate is just it's so intuitive. The stylus is there, the screen is right there. I used a Wacom tablet back in the day when I worked at an agency, but it wasn't. I would have to draw on the tablet, but then look at the screen because it wasn't a screen tablet; it was just black. And I love how intuitive Procreate is. It's just so easy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Carrie. We're trying to get Carrie on the Procreate.
I mean, I'm using Procreate right now. Primarily lately, I've been using Procreate because I know that that's what people want. I just am more familiar with and comfortable with Illustrator because I've been doing it for so long. But I know a lot of people who tell me I hate drawing in Illustrator. I can't draw in Illustrator. I'm like, I've always drawn in Illustrator.
Carrie, do you use a tablet?
Yeah, I do it on my iPad.
Okay.
I draw with the pencil tool.
Yeah.
And you just connect your iPad to Adobe Illustrator or use Adobe Illustrator's iPad app?
I use it on my iPad. Yeah, I use the app on my iPad. There's a few limitations, but with every new version, it's getting better. But the cool thing is I don't have to transfer the file. So if I sit down on my iPad and I draw a cat or whatever in Adobe Illustrator, if I close it, it has a little green check mark and it syncs automatically. I can walk right over to my laptop and open Illustrator Cloud, and it's right there up to like 2 seconds.
That's nice.
That's really so I don't have
cool.
to transfer it. And the thing that I love about it is I don't have to worry about losing my files because I'm super paranoid. So
yeah, I had an external hard drive crash about 5 years ago when I was living in Bali, and I hadn't backed up it was my hard drive that contains all my artwork, and I hadn't backed it up in like 5 months. And I mean, it was a horrible feeling. It was a horrible feeling. And on the professional side, like clients would be asking to license work and want the layered files. And I'd have to, like, I had the high res flattened files saved on Dropbox. So I had to like reverse engineer them back into layered files. It was so messy. And now I only use SSDs, solid state drives, because they're less likely to fail than a hard drive. But I also use a program called Backblaze, where everything on my computer, my drives, backs up continuously to the cloud. So it was
it's like Time Machine, but
it's like Time Machine. It's like Time Machine.
But it's online. Yeah.
I am like, redundancy is my middle name. I think I back up to 3 different places.
That's where I'm at now, Toni.
Yeah.
It's you only need one disaster and then you'll never do it again.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I lost a whole laptop hard drive. And this was, I don't know, 5 years ago. No.
You know, if that ever happens to you guys again, so I don't know if you can always do it, but I do have friends that, have worked at places where they can take it apart and sometimes scrape at least some of the data off of it. So if that ever does happen to you, don't just throw it out. Like, sometimes they'll charge you hundreds of dollars, but it's probably worth hundreds of dollars. Sometimes that data is in there. It's just some of it is corrupted.
Yeah.
So, it may be worth taking somewhere to like a place you trust, maybe that comes with references that can like take your hard drive apart and see what they can get off of that drive. Sometimes it's not even the drive that's corrupted. It's like the shell that it's in.
Yeah.
So
I
always, if that ever happens to me again, it's happened to me too, but just don't give up if that happens. Maybe not all is lost.
And I actually did try to go see if they could save any of the data, but it was corrupted at the BIOS level. They took it out. They tried to plug it in elsewhere. Like, they couldn't do anything with it. So fortunately, this is pre-art days, because I said 5 years, but it was really 10 years now that I think about it. All I lost was all my music and some personal letters, which, that was a blow, but the rest of it was on OneDrive, because that's, where I've been working with my clients ever since OneDrive existed. So
when I was in college, I was carrying one of my external hard drives in my hand because I was walking from one building to another, and it was winter, and they had it was icy, and I slipped, and it was this mother instinct in me. I cradled the hard drive to my chest, and I took the brunt of the blow on my shoulder and cheek. And I was like, no, my baby. And it was fine. I was a little bruised, but my data survived.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
important.
if I'm about to rear end somebody and my hard drive's in the driver's seat, you better believe I'm going to slam my arm out to the side. Yep. I get it.
For real.
sure.
Yep.
All right. Okay. 2 more. So what is your favorite movie?
Oh, Jurassic Park. Hands down. If I could like erase my memory, I would erase ever having seen Jurassic Park so I could experience it again for the first time. I love it. It's a great book, great movie.
Oh
hands
my
down.
God. So
I agree.
I'm
Great book, great movie.
Spielberg
Michael
and
Crichton.
John Williams. My favorite movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Spielberg and Williams.
Yes. I wonder
Yes,
if
but
that's
Jurassic Park is
rising.
amazing.
I wonder if that's rising in popularity right now with all these drone and UFO sightings in New Jersey. Have you guys been following this?
No.
I wonder if I wonder if any of these movies are trending in popularity because of that.
I'm sure
Yeah.
they will. I'm sure they will.
Probably.
All right. Last one. So what is your go-to song, the one you play when you need to pick me up?
When I need to pick me up, my go-to song, I really like Monster Rally. And so it's a genre, it's an artist, and there's some really good songs there. Sunny Sloth is my favorite. So it's chill, it's tropical, it's got some good vibes. So if you go to like my Instagram, I would say like half of my reels, I'm using like the same Sunny Sloth song by Monster Rally, but it's a really good listen. It's a really good listen. I like Monster
I'll have to check that
Rally,
out.
Thievery Corporation, Dengue Fever. It's just like fun, psychedelic, retro, chill vibes. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for this episode.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
ladies.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Kat. It was great to talk to you again, as always. Oh, and before I forget, did we want to tell everybody, Kat, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? We're going to share this in the show notes, but yeah, where can everybody find you?
Everything, my whole brand, and my brand is called CATCOQ. It's because no one can spell or pronounce my last name of Coquillette. So Cat Coke is my brand name. It's my handle for everything. It's my website, Instagram, all that jazz. So that would be the best place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
you.
much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to hopping on again next time. I think I sent you like 20 things that I could complain about. They were like, "Oh, what do you want to complain about?" And I was like, "Well, here's my full list." So,
anytime you want to come back, we're always here.
Exactly.
I've got a whole laundry list of complaints we can chat.
Kat's going to be the best friend of the show.
Yes. Regular guests. Here we come.
We'll make that work. If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.